Scott Hanson, it is so good to see you, my brother. Welcome back to Sports Spectrum.
Jason, I do a lot of podcasts, and this is absolutely one of my favorite. Great to see you again.
I like hearing that. Thank you. I appreciate you saying yes, as always, to come back on the show. Before we get to the gold zone and the red zone and all the zones that Scott Hanson's a part of, let's start with the Lord. We always want to start with first things first. Kind of how's God been working in your life lately? What's some of the lessons? What's that relationship with the Lord like right now for Scott Hanson?
Oh boy. I mean, when is he not, of course?
Yeah.
Gosh, when you ask that question, I would say two ways most recently. This is, summertime here and kids, going from school year into their summer and whatnot. I had a graduation in the family. My nephew Tyler graduated high school in suburban Boston area. And I went to graduation, and when you have a party or a celebration, we had a big family dinner with his friends and everything. And you kind of reflect on someone's life. And when you do that, for an 18-year-old, 17, 18-year-old, it's, a limited amount of time, but you think about what are the biggest things. And we talked about faith, and I remember thinking where I was at when I was 17, 18 years old, and, spiritually and emotionally and physically and all those things.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, I don't have children of my own. But am I the type of man that my nephew and his buddies who look up to me because I'm on TV all the time, am I the type of man that they would look up to, a representative of the Lord that I could say, hey, guys, here's who God is. Here's what the world is. Here are the things that I've learned in the laboratory of life. And here are scriptures, most importantly, that apply to whatever circumstance there is. So I would say that older mentoring type relationship is something that God has really put into the forefront of my mind going through like graduation, which I've always been in my nephew's life. But now that he's transitioning into this new phase, I heard it said one time in a sermon that every man, every person, but this was an all men's meeting at this point. We said every man needs to have three people in his life. You need a Paul, you need a Barnabas, and you need a Timothy. And I make this hand gesture not to really say status level, but you need a Paul, you need an older man in your life who is walking with the Lord, who can pour into your life and say, hey, here's what I've learned in my X number of years of experience being older than you. You need a Barnabas. You need someone walking alongside you who's on that journey with you, who can be an accountability partner and be someone who is doing life with you in all ways. And then you need a Timothy. You need a younger man into whose life you're pouring to say, hey, here's where I'm at, and let me help you along the path as well. I thought that's a beautiful representation. And again, it was an all men's retreat or event that I was at, so they used it as that. But women, same type of circumstance. And by the way, not necessarily just one of those in your life, but it was a good word picture. So I would say that's one way. The other way that the Lord's working in my life right now is through my home church. Shout out Hope Chapel in Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach area here in Southern California. We're going through the Gospel of Luke. We go verse by verse, chapter by chapter, and we've been parked for a little while on Luke 6, which among other things is where Jesus calls the disciples, the first 12. And we're going through different things about what the Bible teaches us about him, and then what church history and world history tells us about the first followers of Christ. And man, is it encouraging for dudes like you and me who mess up often and stumble all over ourselves to read about these very average, ordinary men who Jesus used to impact and change the world. And so those are two things that the Lord's doing in and around my life right now, and I'm so thankful for it.
No, that's good. A couple of things come to my mind. First of all, yes, I can't believe that God would use you and me to have a conversation like this, and then we see what he was working with the disciples, and kind of gives us all a little bit of hope. Like, oh yeah, he likes the guys that are and women who are totally messed up and have a lot going on, the issues, if you will, of the day. But the other thing that really stuck out to me when you said Paul, Barnabas, and Timothy, and I've heard that before said a few
Yep.
places, I struggle with the Paul part at the stage of life that I'm in. So I'm 50 years old now. I feel like I got a good gauge on the Barnabases in my life, a couple really good brothers to keep me accountable. The Timothy seems easier because I'm probably just older and I see that high school and college age. I'm working with young adults here at my church in Connecticut, and I'm constantly around those 20-year-old, 22-year-old young people. So I feel like that's easy. I don't know why, but the Paul is a difficult thing for me in my life. Maybe it's just because I'm not seeking it out. But how have you seen? Do you have a Paul in your life right now? I'm just curious.
I do. I
Yeah.
do. And chronologically, he's not that much older than me, but my
Maybe it's not
dear,
age either, right, Scott? It could
no,
just
it doesn't
be.
have to be age. No,
Yeah.
it's really more spiritual maturity,
Yes.
but age often brings wisdom and an amount of time someone might be walking with the Lord. You could be 50 years old and be a baby Christian,
Totally.
right?
Yes.
You could be 20 years old and have been walking with the Lord for a decade. So it doesn't necessarily have to do with chronological age, but I would say the Paul in my life who's been there for my entire walk with Jesus is Brian McKenzie. He is he's the head of FCA football in the Midwestern United States. Really, he goes all over, but he is an amazing guy, former NFL football player, loves the Lord. He's been a pastor. He's a Bible teacher. He's a follower of Christ with an amazing heart and a student of the word. And is a guy who got me grounded in scripture early and is still the guy that I'll pick up the phone today if I say, hey, I'm struggling with this, or I need to, I'm thinking through this in my mind, whether it's an earthly matter or a spiritual matter. And Brian's been there for me. So I'll have to send him a clip of this podcast here
Yes.
to give him his shout out. He knows I love him. We talk and text, and I'll start getting emotional when I think about it. I get a text every Sunday morning from him. He lives in Missouri and I'm here in California, but I get a text every Sunday morning, like 5 a.m. his time, that, hey, I'm praying for you based on, and he gives me a Bible verse.
Nice.
And he's just a faithful, faithful brother and someone that I'm so thankful is pouring into my life. And I hope to be that way with the people in my life and then those who I might help along the journey as well.
That has to be so nice too, with
Bro,
Sundays
so
being the day that you work and are like entrenched into the NFL with RedZone, and then you get that text as a nice little reminder.
I wake up very early on a RedZone Sunday morning, and Brian McKenzie will beat me to the punch. He's already got his text set out.
I love it.
And no, it's a great thing. And to anyone listening to this podcast that is listening to Jason and I talk about that, I would say seek it out. Seek it out. Seek out a Paul. Seek out a Barnabas or multiple guys or gals who can be Barnabases in your life. And then seek out a Timothy, because one of the ways that the Lord works through our lives, I'm convinced of, is that we get fresh fire when we see someone come to know some biblical principle or come to know the Lord himself through the circumstances in our lives. And it gives you, it just is encouraging to you, almost like seeing a brand new baby being born.
Yes.
Who doesn't look at a brand new baby and hold them in their hands, whether it's their own child or a niece or nephew or a neighbor's friend or a colleague baby, and you get that life gets stirred up in you. And I think the same thing happens in the Christian faith and in the spiritual realm. So I would say, seek out those type of relationships.
We are joined by Scott Hanson here on Sports Spectrum, host of the NFL's RedZone channel. You and I ran into each other in a I don't even know if you remember this. We were standing in line trying to get into NFL opening night at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. And I'm kind of
I was trying to get in. I remember security getting you right through the velvet ropes.
I think it was the other way around, but I could be wrong on that.
Right this way. And I was like, I'm with him.
Yes. Hanson's right behind me. Let's go. We took a quick selfie, but it was just a good reminder to remember that we got brothers out there that are trying to do it the right way. And it was a nice little I don't know what it was, 2-minute opportunity to catch up with you and see you. But then after that, things kind of go crazy because a couple months later, as everybody knows about Scott Hanson on the NFL RedZone channel, and what is it, 7 hours of commercial-free football start now. You're going to be doing some other kind of commercial-free opportunities here. I'm guessing it's commercial-free with the Gold Zone on Peacock with the Summer Olympics. You got to tell us all about how that came about.
Yep, Gold Zone and NBC Sports. So
Right.
the executives at NBC Sports, Molly Solomon, who runs NBC Olympics, and others on her team, are huge RedZone fans, and they hit me up saying, "Hey Scott, we're doing Gold Zone for the Paris Olympics." And I probably don't even, for the RedZone fans out there, when they hear the term Gold Zone and Olympics, it probably just already projects an image in their mind as to what it's going to be. We got 39 sports,
Yep.
multiple disciplines underneath those sports, tons of events. I think 329 medal events. And as NBC Sports has the rights to take you anywhere and everywhere, I'm going to be in a studio in Stamford, Connecticut. I'm actually not going to do it from Paris, but in Stamford, Connecticut, NBC Sports headquarters.
Yeah.
And we're going to take you to wherever the action is hottest in Paris at any given time. Hey, javelin, coming down to the last few throws. Gold medal is going to be handed out here after this round. Let's watch. Oh, okay, so-and-so just won the gold medal. Let's go to the swimming pool right now because Katie Ledecky's got her next heat in the whatever, in the individual medley. And, okay, this something just happened in fencing that we absolutely have to show you. We're going to bounce around.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll be like the exact one-for-one representation of what our audience is accustomed to on RedZone, but hopefully some of those endorphins get popping when the action gets good. And then for those casual Olympics fans that don't know, they can't tell you, scoring in gymnastics or, the world record in the discus or anything, but they love those moments, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. They love those big moments, especially with nationalities involved and stuff. We're going to be able to take you and say, I'm going to tap you on the shoulder, Mr. and Mrs. America, watching Gold Zone when you need to pay attention. Just put us on Peacock, leave us on all day. We'll be on during the day, East Coast time in the United States. Paris is 6 hours ahead. So the main competitive hours will be in let's say New York City will be 9 a.m., maybe a little earlier, all the way up to about 4 or 5 p.m. East Coast time. It's going to be fun. We're ready to rock and roll. Although the research, Jason, is
Oh my gosh.
prohibitive.
I was going to ask you that because I don't know how fluent you are in the Olympics. I'm a kind of a casual Olympic guy. Certainly I know basketball and I know some of the bigger sports, but I don't know fencing, and I'm not a big swimming guy, but I like to watch. But I would imagine as a guy who's entrenched into the NFL, you had to go back to school and get your PhD in the Olympics here.
And I'm still in the process of, and will be right throughout the games, as a matter of fact.
Right.
The amazing research department at NBC Sports has put together emails with attachments that have hundreds of pages on.
Yes.
I mean, you're talking about more than 10,000 athletes worldwide. Now, I don't need to know all of them, obviously, but, more than 10,000 athletes, like I said, 329 medal events, more than 200 countries and delegations, dozens of venues, all with, the fancy French pronunciations and
that would scare me the most, Scott, the pronunciation of the names.
Well, pronunciation of the athletes' names is going to be rough, but pronunciation of all of the different French venues and all of the different Parisian influences, which it's being held in one of the greatest cities in the world.
Yeah.
It's daunting. It's daunting. And I want to say 50, it's less than 50 days now. Actually, we're getting really close right now. But, as I was starting my research, leading up to it, I'm counting down the days. So pray for your boy when he's trying to pronounce Yishislava Shkidishvili, the backup water polo goalie for the Ukrainian team.
Oh my
And that's not real. I just made that up.
I was
But
going to say, if you had that down, I'm super impressed.
yeah, yeah. No,
Oh
but
my God.
the good news is a lot of these athletes' moms are not going to be watching because they're either in Paris or they're in other countries
True.
watching on their own in their own language. So if I mess something up, just please have some grace for your boy.
Totally. Well, that's starting July 27th, I think, is the first Gold Zone, just
Yeah,
in a
we're getting
couple of weeks
close.
here, getting very close. And it's going to be fun to watch on Peacock. You're going to be doing the Gold Zone. There's other hosts too. So it's not like you're
Yes,
doing 7 hours straight,
yes,
correct?
yeah, absolutely. American Ninja Warrior fans will know Matt and Akbar,
Yeah.
the play-by-play and color commentators from American Ninja Warrior. They're coming back for Gold Zone. And then Andrew Siciliano, someone that you and I both know very well, who
Yes.
hosted DirecTV's RedZone channel for NFL coverage for years. He's back on Gold Zone as well. So we're going to take different shifts,
Nice.
blocks of hours at a time. We're going to be like the athletes. We're going to need to be toweled off after going, bing, 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 bing. The most games I can have at one time on RedZone is 10. Roughly 10 is like the high water mark that I ever deal with on RedZone in one given window.
Right.
We could have 15 events going on
Oh,
in Paris in the Olympics at one time. So it's going to be it's going to be an adventure for sure.
chaos, but hopefully organized chaos.
Hopefully organized chaos. And you know what? We Molly Solomon, the head of NBC Olympics, we had some meetings and she told me, she said, Scott, I want this to be a working set, and I want people to feel like they're looking behind the curtain at the Wizard of Oz kind of thing. It's great to be a slick television production, but it's okay if it gets a little chaotic because then that indicates to the audience, whoa, there's all this stuff going on. Lend us your ears, lend us your eyes, and we're going to try and get to all this right now. And the immediacy of that is very attractive on RedZone, and I think it will be on Gold Zone as well.
Oh, I think so. Do you have a favorite, if anything comes to mind, like a favorite Olympic or Summer Olympic moment on just being a fan watching over the years?
Yeah, so I've never broadcasted anything on the Olympics before. I'm like you. I'm a big Olympics fan. I try and watch every day, not every minute of every day when I'm on my own free time. But I'll watch. I want to see what the best of is every single day. And being a proud American, I'm rooting for Team USA, of course.
Yeah.
I would say some of my favorite moments. Well, I'm an old timer. I go back to 1980. Now, this is Winter Olympics.
Yep.
Lake Placid, the Miracle on Ice.
Sure.
My dad heard about the Americans beating the Russians in which, by the way, was a semifinal. It wasn't the gold medal game. People often forget that, but he had heard about it, but it was tape delayed and not being shown until later that night or later that day or whatever. But my dad grabbed me, and I was 9 years old at the time, and said, you and I are going to watch this because there's something that happened. He didn't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
And so that was probably my first realization that the Olympics is something that's on a different plane than other sporting events that are annual or just United States based. And then I would say in recent years, seeing Michael Phelps and his excellence in the swimming pool and Usain Bolt, his excellence on the track. We had, I think it was 3 Olympics, 3 that they were both together, featured at different times, obviously in their own different sports. But to see that level of excellence, I just got a little shot of goosebumps right there.
Yeah.
And then we'll see what Simone Biles and Katie Ledecky and Team USA can come up with this Olympics. It's like RedZone. I can't tell you which NFL games will give us the jaw-dropping moment, the fantastic finish, the controversial play. But I can guarantee you, if you watch RedZone, you'll see whichever one it ends up being. And I can't tell you which events, which teams, which athletes will be the moments that everyone's talking about at the water cooler the next day from the Paris Olympics. But I guarantee you, if you're watching Gold Zone, you're going to be able to see it live or seconds after it happens.
Totally. I love that. You know what comes to mind for me real quick? I remember being a kid when I was 7 when the Olympic Lake Placid moment happened. But then I think 84 with Carl Lewis and I think Mary Lou Retton and some of those names started to
The Los
resonated.
Angeles Olympics,
Los
which
Angeles, of course,
will,
too, right?
yeah,
Which is 2028, right? We're going back
yeah,
to Los Angeles in 4 years, but that's a memory. And then certainly the Dream Team in '92, where I
yes,
really didn't pay attention a lot to the Olympics. But now you're thrusting in my favorite guy, Larry Bird, and you're thrusting in Michael Jordan and Magic. And I think the eyeballs that year were big too. So that, and I love that we still got NBA players. So we got the Olympics this year, pretty much a month and a half after the NBA Finals is over, maybe even a little less. So that's
yeah,
exciting too. We get
yeah,
basketball.
yeah. It's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun. By the way, Steph Curry, as you and I speak, Steph Curry expected to play. This will be his first Olympics, believe it or not. He
Yeah.
had either been injured, like an ankle injury at the end of the year, where he didn't want to push it too hard once we got into the Olympic calendar, or Golden State had played deep into the NBA Finals or all the way to the NBA
They did for
championship
7 years in a row
on
or
an
something.
Olympic year. So he's
Yeah.
never partaken before, but he's going to, team up with LeBron and the rest of Team USA. And of course, they'll be the gold medal favorites, but you never know with some of these international teams being able to spend more time together than Team USA can and
Totally.
playing more like a congealed team. It's not a show up and hand me my gold medal.
No, I love that. Again, the Gold Zone is going to be on Peacock. It starts July 27th, just in a couple days here, with the Olympics getting ready in Paris. And Scott and I will both be in Connecticut. He'll be down in Stamford. I'll be at home in Bristol, Connecticut. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
Shining your Emmy behind you.
Shining my one Emmy. How many Emmys you got? You must have way more than I do.
No, sir.
No Emmys?
Sir. Yep.
Well, come on.
RedZone's been nominated before,
Okay.
but I'm a non-Emmy'd sportscaster.
I hope the sports Emmys are watching here, because we're in the 15th year of NFL RedZone.
This will be season 16 coming up.
Season 16, 15 years ago, I should say. It's time. It's time, Scott Hanson.
I don't do it for the awards, Jason. I do it for the cash.
Yes, I understand. At least you're honest here.
It'd be nice to be recognized that way, but more important to me, and I tell our staff this, more important to me is that when we walk out on the streets and we mix with sports fans, that they have to think about RedZone as their number one favorite sports television show or
great call.
Football show in particular.
Yes,
it would be great if a committee of judges would think that too. But more importantly, we want the millions of rabid NFL fans to say, Scott Hanson and RedZone, that's where I'm stopping on Sunday for 7 straight hours. That means more to us than, at least more to me than awards or other recognition.
Well, count me one among the many of the millions that watch RedZone. That's a staple on Sundays here in the Romano household. Me and my wife come home from church, downstairs, 1:00. It's RedZone, and we're rocking and rolling for the day.
Yes, sir.
I love it, because my wife wants to watch too, Scott. That's what's beautiful. Like, she could easily say, I got to do this or that. And no, it's RedZone. It's Scott. Let's go watch some football.
And where is she at on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being an absolute rabid football fan, 1 meaning she doesn't know who Patrick Mahomes is. Where is she at on there? I'm always interested.
Oh, she's probably, I would consider myself 9-ish, 10-ish, certainly at the high level. She's probably in the 7 range. She's
that's strong then.
She's a big Tennessee Titans fan and loves her Titans. So whenever the Titans are on, and we don't always get all the games locally here, obviously being in Connecticut. So RedZone is a go-to place to watch even some of the Titans highlights. And I know this year she's very excited, but this is a team that she loves. So she knows football. And the only part is, I'm outing her here, and I'm just going to say it. I don't care. She's tired of the Chiefs. So she's like, can we please get Mahomes and the Chiefs off our screen, because all they do is win. And I told her, I said, this is what it was like for 17 years with the Patriots. And now we have the Chiefs. So she just wants to see some fresh blood out there.
Yeah.
Which I totally
tell her
understand.
she needs to talk to Mr. Stroud down in Houston. She needs to talk to Mr. Rogers up in New York, New Jersey. She needs to talk to Mr. Levis in Nashville, Tennessee. By the way, Will Levis, huge RedZone fan.
Yes.
He came up to me in between his last year at Kentucky and being drafted by the Titans. He went to the Super Bowl. For those who don't know, a lot of the players that are in the NFL that didn't make the Super Bowl will come to the site of the Super Bowl, like for the parties or endorsements, appearances during the week of the Super Bowl. And then the incoming rookie class, the big name guys, the quarterbacks, almost always find their way into the Super Bowl city, whether it's endorsements, appearances, whatever. So I was at a party, and Will Levis comes up to me, and I didn't recognize him immediately. I just big strapping lad. I I knew he was an athlete, but I didn't know who. And he comes, he goes, Mr. Hanson. And I'm like, okay, first of all, that
You're his Paul. He's a Timothy, right?
it's yeah, there you go. Yeah. And he just said, I just want to say I love RedZone. I think we took a selfie. Then I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, you obviously, you play. I'm sorry, give me your name. He's like, oh, I'm Will Levis. And I'm like, oh, of course. Okay. I just didn't recognize him without his helmet off because I hadn't seen a lot of his, I'd seen his work at Kentucky with the Wildcats, but not necessarily off the field. And then, of course, finding out he's a brother in the Lord as well. I tried to encourage him. Well, we got each other's cell phone, texted him a verse, and along the way. But well, it'll be interesting. Tell your wife it's going to be interesting in Nashville. There's a lot of competition now in that division, and obviously in the AFC, there's the Mahomes mountain that needs to get climbed.
Well, Derrick Henry was her guy, so she's a little sad. And I told her, I said, we can still root for Derrick Henry. I'm a Cowboys fan. I think you know that. I've been a Cowboys fan since 1980, so a long time ago. But she and I kind of root for the same teams when our teams aren't playing. And I said, listen, Derrick Henry, we'll root for him in Baltimore, but they own, the other weeks that he doesn't play the Titans, certainly root for Derrick. But it's time. Every team goes through this with their legends. Like they always have to make a pivot and move on. And this is that time for Tennessee.
Yeah, and just to remind Titans fans, and her in particular, Peyton Manning didn't finish in Indianapolis.
Yep.
Tom Brady didn't finish in New England.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not for long in the NFL, even with the greatest of the greats.
Totally. All right, let's close with this. I had some bigger topic discussions in mind, but I want to be mindful of time here. So I'm just going to throw a couple words at you that are faith. This is faith-based here.
Yep.
And have you kind of just share like what those words mean to you and the importance of them kind of as you follow the Lord. How's that sound? So we'll start with, I think the first part is just being bold. Like how is it? It's important to kind of be unashamed and bold in our faith without ever beating people over the head with it. When you hear that word bold as a believer, what comes to mind?
For me, it's having the message shared with me at a time in my life when I needed it the most, having the gospel, the good news shared with me at a time when I needed it most in my life by someone who was not afraid to be bold. Mm. It means, how can I hold this in my heart that I say is the most dear, important thing to me in my life, my relationship with God through Jesus Christ, and not say, let me at least share this with you, and not jam it down anyone's throat or anything like that. But here's what I believe. Even here's why I believe it. Here is something that, there's everyone has moments, seasons, years, or maybe an entire lifetime of wondering, questioning, depths of emotion. The world's a hard place.
Yes.
And the gospel is the message that changed the world and continues to. And what type of a person would I be unless I was willing to share it and give a reason for it as well? And so I try to be that way while also recognizing, that I'm a public figure who goes on television worldwide, where it's not the Scott Hanson show. It's not like I can just say whatever I want. I'm respectful of my employers and whatnot. I'm thankful that the NFL is an organization that accepts people of all different backgrounds and faiths and different people on different journeys, and allows me to be, an outspoken follower of Christ. Not during company time, but when I'm talking about myself. I'm very, very thankful for that. So sorry if that's too long of an answer, but boldness, that's where I would go with that.
No, that's the perfect answer, I think.
And by the way, Jason, can I add one last quick thing on that?
Please.
I think where was it? It was the story of when Jesus was giving a hard teaching and some followers of his went away, not the 12 initial disciples, not the apostles, but others followed. And he turned back to the his inner circle, his 12, and said, are you going to depart as well? And they said, Lord, where would we go? Only you have the words of life. And so when I think sometimes when I'm either questioning things about my faith life, or when I stumble and am just being a stupid jerk, and I'm like, you're a follower of Jesus, how could you possibly? When I do that, I go, where else would I go? Where else would I go?
Yeah.
Only the Lord has the words of life, and So that aids boldness, I think, as well.
Totally. That's a great
Yeah.
word there. All right. The next word, we're going to do two more.
Yeah.
Obedience.
Hmm. You speak to the inner man right now.
I'm speaking to myself when I say
Yep.
that word. Yeah.
And oh boy, big topic, because I believe that we are saved by grace through faith. And that means I don't have to look at the 10 commandments or the prescriptions that Jesus put out there to say, if I check all these boxes, then I get into heaven. I want to make sure that everyone understands that that's not what I believe. I believe it is grace. It is unmerited favor.
Yes.
That I'm accepted by God and my eternal destiny is secured through Jesus and not of anything that I've done or will do. But obedience then is born out of that reality to me. When I think, God, you are so awesome. You have done all of this. You've given me all of this. You are so good. It's like, I want to follow. I want to be obedient. I'm like, and I believe what he says about Scott. This is the way you're supposed to be when it comes to money or power or sex or fame or relationships with friends and neighbors and whatnot. I'm like, okay, I believe that you made all of this. So I believe that what you're saying is actually the best way to live. So my obedience ought to align with what your word says about any given life topic. But it's definitely born out of a reaction to his amazing grace in my life, and not a, hey, God, you see what I'm doing down here with the orphans and see what I'm doing over here? I'm a good guy. No, not at all. But obedience is very, very important.
No, it's something we strive for. It's not something we're ever going to perfect, obviously. All right. The last topic, I think the word finish is the word we'll use, but I'm really thinking of Paul talking about in 2 Timothy of running the race well and kind of what that means in the stage of life that you're in right now.
Oh man, when I think of finish, I think of we all could be at the finish line, by the way, of this earthly life. You and I might hang up here at the end of this, and we're not guaranteed, and everybody knows that. I don't mean to sound macabre about it, but
no, it's real life.
But it's true. But when I do think of like finishing, we envision Paul writing that as an older man, quite possibly in prison at the time. Maybe, we don't exactly know. There's church tradition that talks about that, but I think about, who are the older brothers and sisters in Christ that are saying, I know I'm near the end. And I'm not talking about just like a bus hitting me on the street, but like they're 80 years old or something, and they know, right? It's closer to the end, that they've been poured out. Paul wrote in another part of one of his letters that to be poured out like a drink offering, meaning, to me at least, meaning that I've given everything I had. I've given everything. Let me use a pop culture reference if I can. Schindler's List, right? You saw Schindler's List. It's been a while that I've seen it, but the very end of that movie, when Oscar Schindler, played by Liam Neeson in the amazing Steven Spielberg Holocaust picture, when he's leaving the concentration camp and the Jews have been freed, and Ben Kingsley's character is sending him off, and he realizes he was bribing the Nazis, if you remember, with money to allow more Jewish people to come and work at his factory so that he could save them ultimately, not because they were really working to make bullets and bombs and stuff, but he realized, he looked at everything, he had given everything away that he had, and yet when it was time for him to flee, because he was a German who was going to be in trouble when the Allies showed up, he looked down, he still had his wedding ring on, and he was like, oh, I could have taken this, I could have melted this gold down, and I could have gotten another worker, I could have saved another person. He was getting into a car to flee. He's like, I could have sold this car. I could have, and it was an amazing. If to those who haven't seen it, watch it, and to those who have seen it, watch that scene again. I don't want to be like Oscar Schindler at the end of my time to say there was more that I could have given away, and undoubtedly we all will say that there will be. But I want to finish well and finish strong, and just say that you know, I tried to be there for everyone who needed me in my life. I tried my best with what I was given.
Mm.
So that when you said finish, that's something that just popped into my head.
Yeah, there's always going to be, like you say, regrets, but I
Yeah.
think to have the lesser amount of those, the better, I guess, and to live your life to the
Yeah.
fullest for Christ right now is what we got. So
Yeah.
that was great. Last question I got for you, buddy. This was so much fun here. Week 1, as I mentioned, NFL season Red Zone begins September 8th. It's the 16th year, as you mentioned. It's 15 years ago that it launched, which is still crazy. What's the biggest difference between the Scott Hanson who first hosted NFL Red Zone in 2009 and the one I'm talking to and speaking to today?
I would probably answer that. Since you phrased it as a Red Zone timeline question, I would probably talk about my maturation as a broadcaster, I guess.
Sure.
Where I felt like, and we've covered this in previous podcast appearances before, but I felt from the very first episode that Red Zone was going to be a galactic hit. And I wanted to make sure that my skill set and my work on it would marry well with the job requirement to help the show flourish and make it be the best NFL TV viewing experience that it can be. I feel now, maybe going into season 16, that this is another mixed sports metaphor, but I'm behind my skis a little bit. Like I feel comfortable. I feel good, not complacent, but comfortable. I'm beyond the desire to be recognized or, feted around the world as being this great sportscaster. It's fine if fans, love me and, and react well to that. But I'm here to serve, I'm here to serve the audience. And I get fired up thinking, I don't have a favorite NFL team. But when I show Jared Goff to Amon-Ra St. Brown in the final seconds of the game and the Lions win, I'm thrilled for those Lions fans that are watching, right? When I, go down to AT&T Stadium and Dak Prescott hits CeeDee Lamb on a 50-yarder in the fourth quarter to take the lead, I am thrilled for those Cowboy fans. So I would say season 16, Scott, is more, I feel more in control, in command of who I am and what I'm about as a broadcaster, which allows me to focus on the audience and focus on the product to serve it to them as best I can and not worry about how do I look? How do I sound? How do I, am I going to get a contract extension? All these type of other things. And I think it's a great way to approach any career and approach life as well, to think about others and think about what you're putting out instead of what you're gaining from it.
And I'll tie the bow on this with a scripture verse from Matthew 20:28, where Jesus says, I came not to be served, but to serve and give my life as a ransom for many. So everything you just described is biblical and is a characteristic and a trait, I think, of Christ, and for us as Christ followers to exude is to serve others.
And if the hinge of history and the greatest single life that's ever been lived in since the dawn of time lives that way and said that he lived that way, how much better an example for us?
I think that's the perfect way to end this conversation, my friend. Hey, first of all, Gold Zone reminder, July 27th on Peacock. Scott Hanson and a couple of other people helping out there on the Gold Zone for the Olympics. And then, of course, Red Zone, September 8th. It's coming soon, my friend. You got a busy summer here. You usually get the time off, but not this year, buddy. Not this year.
It's going to be fun, and I'm here to serve. So we'll see you. We'll see you in Paris, and we'll see you on Red Zone come September.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you.
Merci beaucoup.
Hey, thanks for watching Sports Spectrum here on YouTube. You can click our next video, or you can check out our website, sportspectrum.com.